Hello, welcome to the Age of Sigmar Stat Center. That's right. I'm Rob, and I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Owen Jackson. Can we get a round of applause for you, Owen? Hello, Owen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Oh, that'd be good if we had like a sound effect when the show came on, like, or like people like canned laughter for my shit jokes. That'd be great, right?
I think I can do this. Wait, hold on. Let's see if I get a crowd noise going. I'm pretty certain I can. We'll see what you guys think. There's.
I'm not sure. I can't hear that, right?
I think the crowd can hear it, so that's all that really matters. Obviously, we're in front of a live studio audience, which is the fantastic Twitch chat. Gangster Pairs of Dice, Rob Kelly, Matt Redness, Knigget. Keep doing the memes, Knigget. They make me laugh. Jalmisio, thanks for resubscribing. Thanks, everyone, for subscribing. Dacon, what going on? Did you hear that? Did you hear it? That's what I need to know. Big ups. Hey, Nurgle Matthew. Big love to you. I hope you're well. You absolute treasure. Thanks, everyone in the chat. Disco Manga, what's going on? Tournament winner Owen Jackson is what I should describe. The champ Owen Jackson is how I describe it. Now, if you haven't joined us before, the Stat Center, what we do every single Monday is me and Owen look at event results from around the world. In a few weeks, we will actually put you some physical stat numbers out there as well. There hasn't really been, until this weekend, I think, enough data to confidently put actual stats out there in the world. Thanks to Redacted for resubscribing. And so we're going to be putting that together. Me and the stats team will be putting that out together, and they all know who they are. Big shout out to them. But me and Owen look at the event results, and we kind of pass our eye over the lists and what we think's been going on around the world. And Owen, it's been the biggest Age of Sigmar 3 weekend since Age of Sigmar 3 came out. I know that's not been very long, but also one of the biggest event weekends we've had in a very good long time because of, as you know, people being trapped in their house because of the lunar cycle. I think that's why people have stayed in for 18 months, the lunar cycle.
Wasn't it? No, wasn't it about 5G or something? That was it.
5G stopped us all going outside, and so because of that, we've been... so there's... and Owen was also at an event this weekend and won one. But before we get into any of that, Owen, how you been? You okay? You well?
Well, yeah. Not much sleep. 6 games of Warhammer this weekend and a night out. But wouldn't have changed it for the world, Rob. You know, we got to hang out with all sorts of lovely people. Looked at some cool armies. So I'm knackered but happy.
Good.
You know, like how you feel after a really good set. Yeah. Knackered and happy.
Oh, yeah, those 5 minutes always fill me. Those 5 minutes always fill me with joy.
I'm spicy as well. I don't know what I don't know what I could say at this show, Rob.
Right, so hello everyone. Listen.
But yeah, I'm good, man.
Yeah,
well?
I am, because we've got such an exciting set of information to talk about today. Like, really, really is. Like, if you guys haven't tuned into the Stats Center before, one of the things that we talk about a lot is that generally the meta is pretty fucky when you get down to Australia town. However, America decided to flip it on its head. Maybe it's not fucky, we don't know. Age of Sigmar 3 is so new. There's so many new things happening all over the place that we're all still trying to work out exactly what we're trying to achieve, and what people are trying to achieve on the tabletop. Had a very long conversation last night, having looked at the stats from the Super Series showcase match just from Saturday. Like, I think it's all monsters forever now, but we'll talk more about this in a bit, because in some cases, Jeremy, shout out to you, it is not. Like, some performances have come out from America this weekend, Owen, that have blown me away. So impressive for some of these things. So should we just jump straight into them? Because I think that's probably
There's a lot to cover, right? And we've got a finite amount of time, so I don't think we're going to be going super detailed, but like you always do, Rob, you know, some of the top lists have gone on the Honest Wargamer website, so if people want to go back and forensically dig in, but yeah, we'll rattle on, because there's loads of games and loads of interesting stuff to come out of it.
Yeah,
right?
So it's been a very interesting weekend. So we'll just go and look at our first result. So don't forget, when we talk about event results, we talk about 5-0 brackets. 5-0 brackets and 4-1 brackets. Those are really, really important. And the largest event that we had this weekend, Owen, do you want to tell us about that?
So that was Summer Slaughter. So yeah, almost 100 players over in America. Apologies to American community. I don't know exactly where that was, but I'm sure that's by the by. I'm sure everyone had a wicked time. So yeah, almost 100 players, which is going to be the biggest event for almost a couple of years. So Yeah, and the cream always rises to the top, doesn't it, Rob?
The return.
So Bill
The
Sousa.
return of the Ghoul King himself. I can't. He must be one of the most dynamic Warhammer players in the world. Thank you to Morglum, Stormsmasher, and Lord Wilco for resubscribing. And when I talk about Warhammer, I'm talking about Age of Sigmar specifically. Now, if you don't know about Bill was running some pretty off-meta lists with Flesh Eater Courts before they got that huge spike with the release of the new book. The new book came out, he didn't really get involved, wasn't a part of it. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's a phenomenal human being. He's the captain of the America or the USA ETC, WTC, AOS Worlds, whatever the fuck it's all called, team. A proper gent. And has just played a blinder of a game with an amazing list, taking it out with Flesh Eater Courts. So he went 5-0, one of 3 players to go 5-0. So there's 3 people in this bracket, right, Owen?
Yes, there is indeed. Yeah, there's 3 in there. So alongside Bill is another person who contributes regularly to both the show and Goonhammer, Joseph Cryer, getting a big 5-0. I think that's maybe his first 5-0 with his Helon Lumineth list.
Can we just?
So he's going to He's going to be.
He's going to be very chuffed. I mean, fans of the Foxes, not very chuffed. Not fans of the Foxes, not chuffed. I think is the way around it all works. But yeah, and we saw similarly in England in a small one day. We saw a quad fox list actually go 3-0 as well. That was Dan Bradshaw doing one of a 3-0 list at a one day. But we'll talk more about that later. Let's just talk about Bill's list because I think it's super interesting. And it not only is it Flesh Eater Courts, which it's Flesh Eater Courts. Just so you know. Generally not considered to be that much of a powerhouse in Age of Sigmar 3 at the moment. Maybe this will flip the balance. You tend to have trends. People just get very excited about this or that, or there's a flavour of the month. And Bill has gone Flesh Eater Courts, returned to his roots, but then he's thrown it all out of the window and he's taken an allied Gatebreaker Megagargant into his Flesh Eater Courts army. So he's really mixed it up and stirred the pot. I'll read the rest of the list out because I know Owen knows some of this tech. He's got an Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist with the Amulet of Destiny, of course, so there's that 5-up ward. He's got Gruesome Bite, which of course is the rerolls on the bite attack, and he's got Laura Madness, which is Spectral Host. He's got an Infernal Courtier, and he's got a Vargulf Courtier as well, who's got the Arcane Tome with the Universal Artifact. He's got an Arcane Tome, and he's got Flaming Weapons, which small... Smashbat, tiny Smashbat. If you guys know what Smashbats are, it's an interesting take. Then he's got 3 battle lines, really small, 3x3 crypt flayers. No, sorry, 4x3 crypt flayers, and that's it. That's his list. So really not that big. Owen, what do you make of this list?
I mean, it's really interesting. I think the main headline is what he's called the Abhorrent Emperor. See, everyone's narrative, even people who go 5-0 are narratives, is Abhorrent Emperor, who's the Gatebreaker Megagargant. Now, I'm not going to profess to seeing this straight away, but a few chats I'm in have picked up on this, which is that if people want to put a Megagargant in their list, they need to have a look at maybe their spell lore and see if they can pick out any good spells or abilities that are friendly. So what he can do with this is he can essentially he can cast spells onto this Megagargant because a lot of them target friendly units. So I'm not sure if he can make it fly. He hasn't put in levitate, has he? But he may be able to make them fly by casting Spectral Host, because I believe Spectral Host is if you don't fly, it makes you fly, and if you do already fly, it makes you run and charge. So I'm sure there's some sweet tech in there. I haven't had time with my weekend to really dig in. I do think, as you picked up on, Arcane Tome on the Courtier with Flaming Weapon is sweet. So he's going to have damage 3 on the claws. But flayers, I mean, I initially thought he's not in Blister Skin. How has he got his Crypt Flayers there as battle line? And obviously he has because he's got a Crypt Infernal Courtier. So no Abhorrent Archregent, which is normally the absolute mainstay of any FEC list, right? He's only got 1 summon in the list, which is from the Royal Terrorgeist. But he's effectively got 2 bullies and then incredibly fast chaff, which is going to be able to hold objectives while those big boys are just pushing in. And Unleash Hell on Crypt Flayers is sexy time because you don't care about the -1 to hit. And if you're going into stuff with low bravery, you can have a great time if you roll well. Because also when they finish the charge with flayers, they're already within 3, so you don't have the -2 modifier. Yep. So it's literally 2d6 against their bravery. So you're not that motivated to charge into those little 3s, and he's going to be all over the board. So I think there's a lot to do with player skill here, but it's a really, really interesting list for Flesh Eaters players, and I'd encourage people to get on the site and dig further than I've had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, if you guys jump into it. So again, I'll put the link in the chat for you guys, but these will all be, if you're listening to this back as a podcast or watching on YouTube, these will all be either in the show notes or they'll be on the honestwargamer.com. Hopefully some of these players will go onto the website and maybe write up exactly how their lists work or what's going on. I think one of the interesting things here, like Owen said, it very much moves away from the traditional builds that we used to see before, where we saw Gristlegore. We got to see a fight again. I mean, he's still going to be able to use fight again on the Abhorrent Ghoul King on Royal Terrorgeist, and that's pretty good, right? Making yourself fight twice is great, and it means you're not using command abilities in other places. I think one of the key takeaways from this is I reckon Bill has done what I think is it's a very thin end of a wedge, which me and Owen were talking about before. And there's an efficiency conversation about scoring maybe 3 more points over the course of an entire match, and that's he's got two monsters that can definitely achieve a battle tactic. And then there's additional. There are 3. I think there are 3. There might be 4 battle tactics that, if you do them with monsters, you score an additional point. And both of his monsters don't give up the killer monster very well, if that makes sense. So they don't give up an additional VP. So those are really, really quite key. And then everything else is just about some small targeted ball control. And his army is very fast. It's super mobile. So actually, we saw this from the megagargant game from the Super Series coverage, if you go back and watch it, from Saturday, from Simon Froley, and also from Andy Hughes running his Soulblight Gravelords list. I think that this is going to become fairly common, because when you look at it, you think, okay, you can't hold objectives super well with the crypt flayers, and he's just going to trade. He's just going to trade on objectives, and he's going to counterpunch with 2 very aggressive units that can be very, very fast. And that Gatebreaker Megagargant has got that Ren 3. And actually, we were talking a lot about, last week and the week before about that armor save stacking that you might get on your Archeons, or even your Nagashis, or whatever it might be. The Gatebreaker Megagargant having Ren 3 means you can start punching through stuff. And also there's a lot of attacks coming out of a Royal Terrorgeist as well, so do some significant damage. Not quite the Rend, but the Gatebreaker's got that as well.
Yeah, and I think if you go for the 3 headlines, he's got monsters. If he really wants to, he's got a wizard to turn another one into a monster for a ferocious advance for the extra point. So he's got monsters, he's got Rend, and then he's got those destructive mortals, because he's obviously got Gruesome Bite on the Terrorgeist to re-roll that more, looking for the spike. He's also been very efficient on the CPs. So I think 2 little bits of information that I can glean just from having a look now. He's got Feast Day, so once a turn, he can do a pile in an attack a second time. So that's effectively 10 free CP. So you can use the other CP he's got for cheeky redeploys or a little bit of extra, all-out defense. He's going to be able to lean into the AS3 toolbox really well. And finally, on the playstyle, his strategy is hold the line, so keep the battle line alive, which probably does mean that those flayers, at least 1 or 2 units, are going to be little backfield, just hold on, reactive pieces. He obviously feels that with the play style, he's always going to be able to keep hold of those. So he's going to be pushing the 2 monsters into the opponent's army. He's got the 1 summon, which the opponent has to respect. So he has to screen out his backfield. So he's your opponents have always got to screen the backfield and be aware of these monsters that are going to push into them. And then he's not going to be giving up his grand strategy very often, because while they're trying to deal with all that, the flayers, or at least 1 unit of flayers, is just going to be backfielded going, sweet, I'm 3 points right here. Come and get me. And if you chase him down, you can just run away really easily if it's going to come down to 3, not the primary. So yeah, really, really interesting. It'd be interesting to hear his thoughts on the list.
Me too. But
if he doesn't want to give his
ultimately, we're talking about Bill. Someone messaged me this list yesterday. They're like, "Look, flesheatercourts one." I'm like, "No, Bill Sousa one." I have nothing but the utmost respect for his playstyle and his ability to play. He also writes great lists. So there's the double. He's a double threat. He's also gorgeous. So he's really a triple threat as a human being. He's a great list writer. He's also a great list player. and he's just a wonderful person. So ultimately, this is a list that, like, I think people could try and build and replicate, and also it would look awesome to build up a Gatebreaker Megagargant, of course, with some sort of like flesh eater court goodness to him. That would look awesome. But Bill Sousa won this, and he deserves that credit. The other two lists that went 3-0. Our man Joe Cryer, again, Joe Cryer puts so much time and effort into Age of Sigmar. He plays constantly. He plays a load, and so he's going to be really happy with this second place. But again, it went 5-0, and this is Helon. He had Prize Sorcery, so keep a wizard alive, and he had a Hurricane Wind Mage in his army, and then he had Severith. He had 2 lots of 10 Wardens. He had 30 Sentinels, and then he had 3 more Wind Spirits in his army. So he had Severith plus 3 Wind Spirits in his army. That's what he had. Only 95 wounds, pretty light on the wounds, but of course there's all that shooting. And actually, having seen Lumineth play a couple of times over the weekend, I think these 30 Sentinels are very important with Lambent Light in what they're able to achieve, because you need just consistent damage output. And Severith is so key into so many matchups. Vital into a Zinc Archaon play, vital into so many stuff, and effectively, as we all know, they're unchargeable. They're not actually unchargeable, they're just incredibly difficult to charge, almost impossible to charge, and it's just a great list. It's just a really solid list, and probably one of the better lists currently in Age of Sigmar. I don't know what you think, Owen.
I mean, I do think when you read off the list, you're like 10 Wardens, 30 Sentinels, 3 Spirits of the Wind, and 0 Sports Votes. Because it's not much fun to play against if you haven't got the tools. But hey, it's in the game, and I think it loses hard to quite a lot of stuff. Morathi Bow Snakes, just rinse it all off. And Thunder Lizard probably blows up the foxes with the Bastillodons. So it's not as if it's unplayable. But yeah, going back to Joe on the list, you're right. I see his name popping up in tournaments all the time. So props to him, because, you know, it may have this kind of movement tech, and it will be frustrating to play against with a pure combat army. But it's still incredibly fragile, right, Rob? And if you can touch the Sentinels or get into the Sentinels, then all the output's gone, right? Obviously, Severith and the Hurricane Spirit of the Winds do a little bit, but they're like little scalpels. Actually taking something big down is all on those Sentinels. So he must have played really, really well to win all of his games.
I think one of the interesting things about having just Severith, or when you have Severith and you have more Wind Spirit, is your ability to move block. Difference between Age of Sigmar and 40k, obviously, is your engagement range is 3 inches as opposed to 1 inch. So actually, if you put a Wind Spirit out, and another Wind Spirit 6 inches away, and another Wind Spirit 6 inches away, you actually can create like a huge zone of denial where opponents can't walk into, so you can slowly move block them. Now that doesn't work super well into Deepkin, obviously, because they'll just fly over the top and they can charge and a bunch of other stuff. But you're doing that in your turn. They're moving up, that's where they end up, and then the Wind Spirits are moving away at the end of your shooting phase, so you aren't able to actually charge them, because you're then going to be 15 inches away. So they can just keep move blocking you consistently, and I think, so that's the difference between having 1 and having 4 in what they achieve. And so you talk about, like, I mean, if you've ever been into Warhammer Fantasy Battles, or you just, how do you protect your gun line? You've got your gun line, how do you stop your opponent getting there? You know, we talked about at the start, is it going to be shackles? Or people, start of Age of Sigmar 3, we're going to see shackles cast all the time and slow people down. It's like, no, it's just going to be 4 foxes stood in front of your army, and then moving back 12 inches every turn, but then they're going to move forward again in their turn. The only thing that kind of gets them down is, you know, if you end up getting the double, or, you know, jumping on top of that. So again, Joe would have had to play it, because while we've seen this list do okay, sometimes we've seen lists similar to it get into the 4-1 bracket. We haven't seen that permanently. So I don't think that this is the dominant 5-0 list that people may be voicing on the internet, but I do think it's very strong.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a bit of a sort of cliche at this point, but it's a player's army. You don't just put it on the table, push it forward, and win, right? You really have to. It's relatively fragile, and you really have to play it really well. There's a lot from my TTS experience. A lot of people picking up Lumineth and, you know, going 1-4 and 2 and 3, because it's a very highly technical army. So, I mean, he's obviously got a teleport in there as well, by the way, Rob. So he's going to be bopping those 30 block of sentinels around wherever he wants, behind the screen, as you've described. The screen of foxes. What a mad game that we're talking about having a screen of foxes. It's Warhammer's.
It's fun.
It's
really fun, and those sentinels are going to do. Those sentinels are going to do incredible work. Lambent Light allows you to reroll hits, and then obviously when you empower the sun metal weapons, it's 5s and 6s, so it's 30 shots. Oh, it's 29 shots because the champ doesn't get one, does he? So it's 29 shots, and then 5s re-rolling are going to cause mortal wounds is very impressive. Actually, the really cool thing in Helon, which I don't know if Joe pulled off the trick over the weekend, is if you charge when they're in Helon, you get to shoot. You get an additional shot. So actually, it's 29. What's that? 60. No, 58. It's 58 shots with Unleash Hell. Yeah, right. So 58 shots with Unleash Hell, which is just crazy. So like he sometimes might have put the 30 sentinels out and is like, charge me, I'm going to do this. Yeah, 100%.
Sure that's right? Isn't it the guy? Yeah. Wow. Okay. Also, I'd imagine like sometimes, dependent on what the turn is or whatever, the foxes kind of jump out the way like a sort of curtain, and behind you've just got loads of lads with arrows just waiting for you. Like, okay, you can not charge me, but you can charge. Like, nah.
It's when you bust down the door and there's like the shotgun or the bolt thrower or whatever on the other side. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So he may have done some baits with that as well, and that would have been really fun to see on the tabletop. And again, congratulations to Joe. Now, the other list I haven't put on the site, mainly because it was a text image, and obviously everyone who puts their list in as text image is the worst. So if it is you who's done it, I'd like you to know I mean that with all of my goodness. With an image, you use text. Don't use an image. Just do that.
And when you use text, don't put it in like one stream of consciousness.
Oh no, they're the worst.
Where they're like,
But okay, so this is a 98 player event. We've already had there are 3 people in the 5-0 bracket, 3 people, and they're all different lists, which I think is fantastic, right? Thanks, Ghost Runner TV, for subscribing. Yes, please use text. Text would be great. Don't use pictures. I know what I said before was dumb. And then so we've had Lumineth, we've had flesheatercourts, which is wild, and then Matt Obringer. Amazing work from him. He's run Slaves to Darkness, so he's got Hosts of the Everchosen, 6th Circle, so that's going to be that +1 damage, basically, in 6th Circle, and that's really, really important. Some works, thanks for resubscribing, big love to you. And because and we saw a list like this, very similar list like this, run in Australia. Such a good list, although it was Mark Sinesh. So it's Archeon and a Chaos Lord, and then it's 3 units of 3 Varangard. These are all with Mark of Zinch, and then a Chaos War Shrine with a Mark of Zinch. So it's got that additional spell ignore on the Varangard. Now, the one we saw run in Australia was almost identical, but it was Mark Sinesh. So exploding 6s on the Varangard so that you got more output. So there's just a choice been made between Matt Obringer and the whoever was running it in Australia. I'm sorry that I forgot. But it's a very viable playstyle because this went 5-0. And I know Archeon's amazing. Archeon is obviously amazing for 830 points, but it's just so good. Like, those Varangard are amazing, and like we talked about before, they didn't go up points in Age of Sigmar 3, which means they effectively got 15% cheaper because everyone else went up 15%, right? So they're just very solid. They're 280 points, and yeah, amazing list. The results are all on BCP, and the lists are on the Honest Wargamer website. Is what they are. I am going to put that one on later, but having looked through several hundred lists just this morning, I haven't had time to rewrite that one out yet and put it on the website. But those lists are already on the website, and that one's really interesting. Piling attack twice on Varangard, Archeon with the command ability, the +1 to wound as well. The +1 to wound because Archeon's on the board. All out attack is going to be really useful on them. Piling attack twice. You could send them in waves. Such a good list. Really big fan.
Yeah. 2 things I'll pick up there as well, Rob, which is Markers each gives them reroll 1s. So effectively the whole army is a 2-up save rerolling 1s if they're either Mystic Shield or All-Out Defense. And knowing who's going to go next is really good in the game, isn't it? Because you get the Dark Prophecy or whatever it's called. So if you roll the dice and and it's turn 1, and you go, sweet, I'm getting a double turn early, you just go for that ridiculous alpha potential if you want. And then, yeah, this leans into the idea or the knowledge that Slaves has the best rerolls in the game at the moment. War Shrine rerolls, Mark of Siege save rerolls, and then there's good tech, and then Archaon can, do a lot of good work. And he threatens all those big heroes, apart from Gargants, because obviously they're too big to go in the sword, like we talked about last week.
Yeah. Really good. And actually, you picked up on that. Those reroll ones to save because of Mark of Siege, so useful on units that are already got 3-up armor save with all-out defense or Mystic Shield, giving them additional +1 or in their finest hour just means that they're that much more survivable. It's a great list, and also arguably got to be one of the easiest lists to put together. You got to paint the big man Archaon and a Chaos Lord, and then it's 3/3s of Varangard, and you just running around a War Shrine. You're just running around having a great time. Pretty easy to transport, apart from Archaon, I guess. Just chop him in half and have him coming out of the ground, or I don't know, lie him down or something. He's on a big base. Just make him.
Is that literally it, Rob? Is it Archaon, 3 units of Varangard, and the
one
Shrine?
Chaos
That
Lord.
is the list. Is there any Chaos Lord on foot for
Chaos
the double
Lord,
activation?
for the double activation.
Yeah.
It's a great list, right?
Yeah. It's horrible. Yeah, well, because also, Rob, the spell ignore stack, because Varangard have got a 5-up anyway, and Archaon's got a 4-up anyway. So you've got a 4-up 5-up or a 5-up 5-up. So you're good into the magic meta. You're not going to get debuffed too much. You're good at threatening monsters. Everybody can go twice if they want to. Everybody can fight when they die if they want to, if they finally die. Yeah. I mean, you're right, though. Varangard are a bitch to paint. So, he's earned his 5-0, right? So
I think an amazing work, right? So I think he should just be genuinely very happy. So I think, and that's and what a nice spread at the 5-0 bracket. Nice spread. Flesheatercourts, Lumineth, and Slaves to Darkness. Lovely little spread. Spread across 3 different Grand Alliances. Yeah. Yeah,
fantastic. That's that. It's a bit Wild Westy at the moment, right, Rob? So we're going to see all sorts of stuff doing well, and that's probably down to good quality list writing and good quality play. So it's a proper meritocracy at the moment.
Yeah, me too.
Which I like.
What was in the 4-1 bracket?
Oof, there was a lot. I mean, just to list them off, in the 4-1 bracket, I'll give people their shout. So yeah, Scarlet Holloway ran Skaven Tide with 6 Storm Fiends and Thanquol. And we had Caleb Walters with a Zinc Hostiplustus with Kairos and the Summoning Engine. Craig Yorkidis took Breaker Tribe. Then we've got another Breaker Tribe from Horatio Rivas, another Breaker Tribe from Nicholas Hall. So Gargants, whilst not getting the 5-0, got 3 4-1s in there, Rob.
In that 4-1 bracket, really important.
Then Marathi Bowsnakes, a Slanesh list with Sigvald. And a load of
the Jacob random needs. There's actually 2 across this weekend. There are 2 Slanesh lists that are in the 4-1 bracket. 2, which is crazy. 2, like 1 at this event and 1 I think at the Old Town. We'll go and look at it in a minute. But Jacob Brandon needs a shout out because I mean, incredible work. Slanesh Godseekers. He's running Sigvald Sinessa, the Epitome, and then Epitome's the General, and then he's got 22 Blissbarb Archers, arguably the most overpointed unit in Age of Sigmar. He's got 2. He didn't just take 1. He doubled up on them, which blows my mind. And the 2 times 5 Slickblade Seeker units, and then 2 1s of the Seeker Chariots. And he also had what are they called? The little fast mounts. Now I just don't know how he achieved that. If I'm honest, Owen, I just don't know what I'm looking at. So, and when I see that, I think I don't know how that just doesn't fall apart. So Jacob needs like a huge round of applause. What a fantastic result! Like, because honestly, I put like Slanesh down as like a 2-3. Like that's their top bracket, averaging a 1-5. So he's outperformed my expectations beyond the moon. Like, wasn't expecting that at all. So like, he's got to feel super happy with himself in that situation, right?
Yeah, definitely. I've just realised as well, Rob, that 22 Blissbarb Archers is only 15 points less than 15 Hearthguard Berserkers.
Wow.
Also, we've just had the Hot Suze in the chat, which if I'm not mistaken, that's Bill, who we were just giving the big up. So yeah, well done, Bill.
Oh, the Hot Sues.
Wicked list.
The yes!
Hot Sues is Bill.
Oh
yeah,
my
Bill
God! Did you send me a picture of my Twitter on Gargant? Yes, amazing. A phenomenal work, Bill. Like phenomenal work on just being you and one of my favourite Age of Sigmar players in the world. Congratulations. Sorry, you were saying.
So just finishing off those 4-1s. Talking of Fire Slayers, actually, Michael Vaginos with Fire Slayers like Hermdar, and then a couple of Seraphon lists. Stephen Cole took Fangs of Sotek, and Michael Hunsicker took Thunder Lizards. And then finally, I think Brad Collins needs to have a shout out as well. Bone Splitters Drakfoot. Loads of after saves. You can take your Amulet of Destiny and you can chuck it in the sea because I've got a big spear that you can't.
Fucking great work from Brad.
So,
yeah,
well done, Brad. That's a great result. And then not quite kings of the 4-1 bracket, but certainly an army that we should all look out for, which is Soulblight Gravelords. We haven't got a name there for that player, but a Legion of Night list going 4-1. So great work. Great work. And again, listen to all those different armies we've got. Combat, we've only got really one control army, and maybe we'll talk about that later in our monster conversation, Rob. But, we've got long-range shooting, scalpel shooting, big gargants, Jacob going mental with Godseeker Slanesh somehow. And then, I think Scarlet Holloway, there was somebody in the chat, I think Scarlet might have... he or she did really well with Skaven, which... I played against Skaven yesterday, and it's bonkers when it goes right, isn't it? You just got to keep pulling the levers.
Huge fan of Skaven at the moment as well, because they threaten everyone. They threaten everyone with a good time, is what they do, and it's not going to work all the time, but it is a Sex Panther list. Yeah, like 63% of the time, it's going to work every time. When it does, it's gonna ruin people's days. So I'm a big fan of. You wouldn't use it in any like team event, but you would. You would just go for it. So, and like you say, super diverse. I mean, like I say, Bill with flesheatercourts won because Bill's Bill. Joe, being the menace that he is, and then Matthew Obringer proving again that Slaves to Darkness 6th Circle Host the Ever Chosen list is a solid pick. But everyone in the 4-1 bracket deserves their shout outs as well, because I looked at some of the points. They were very close on the 4-1 brackets. They were very close. Again, Gargants. That was the one that was in there the most, right? Triple Gargant in the 4-1 bracket from this event. Big takeaways.
Yeah, they're just really good at AOS 3. Anybody who watched the coverage on Saturday, really, really good. So, just being... they just complete tactics really well and are a menace, and they've got decent output. Their stonks are way up. Excuse me. What do you want to do, Rob? Should we go? We'll stick to the US. Should we go over to Orlando for the US Open? Is that our next point of call?
So I've got Cody's list. I haven't got it on the website because again, it's a picture of a printed out list, which I'm glad you guys got independence, because this is some wild shit that I don't want to ever experience again in my life. This is you guys can keep it. But anyway, big shout out to Cody. So he's got to be really happy about this, because obviously this is Games Workshop's own event. It was 66 players, but he got to play at the Games Workshop one, so the US Open. There were other bigger events, but still, Cody's got to be super happy because it was 66 players. And this is it's a Soulblight list, and it really feeds off the conversation we've been having the past couple of weeks, Owen, about some pretty cool stuff in here. So I'll just read it out to you in a moment when I can actually understand it. Right, there we go. So he got Vordry and he's got Radikar. We've talked about Radikar being really solid as well. And then he's got those. He's got 2 lots of 20 Deadwalker zombies, and then he's got 2 lots of 10 direwolves, and he's got the corpse cart as well. And is that everything that's in his list? That can't be right. Oh, and a Necromancer, and a Coven Throne, and Belladama. Sorry. There we go. That's the list. And this ties into a conversation we had last week, because I don't know if it was Cody at the LSO who went 4-1, but we've seen a very similar list from last week or the week before, or definitely the LSO, in the 4-1 bracket. And I've been talking about it time and again, even when we did the Soulblight Gravelords review, that Belladama and Radikar combo with the Direwolves and the zombies gives you so many options. And then I love what he's done with Vordry. So he's put Vordry in the list, so the whole thing can just play statically and aggressively, and those two characters, along with the Coven Throne, are just buffing those pretty trash units that you're paying for in the dogs and also the zombies. But then Vordry can just be like, cool, I'm definitely going to achieve this thing right now. Off I go. Bosh. And Radikar's a beast. I know he is the beast, but Radikar's amazing. Belladama's got a great control spell, so it's a real good mix of stuff, and your opponent doesn't quite know where your power comes from, and you can use Vordry as a bully piece in the list. I think it's got loads of play, and I think he's going to have caught loads of new people out, and they're going to be like, what does this do? And then he's just going to swamp people. We saw how effective the retreat 6-inch piling was just this weekend on the zombies as well. Retreat, and because they've got the good 6-inch piling, like Yetis, you can use those zombies to be in places people do not expect, and especially with a cheeky redeploy. A redeploy into a 6-inch pile-in is phenomenal. Fantastic, and a great list.
Yeah. And I do think that at the moment as well, everyone's trying to remember so much in the game that the opportunity for that to be hella impactful is quite big, right? You know, you're trying to remember about your tactics and this and that and the other, and then redeploy can be a cheeky gotcha, but I think that the tech around the 6-inch pile-in and the redeploy, so effectively your opponent might retreat out of combat and be like, sweet, I'm not going to be touched. But then effectively, think of it this way, Rob, those zombies could, with a redeploy, have a 12-inch pile-in.
Yeah.
If you think of it in those terms, it's like, how do you manage that when there's loads of other stuff going on in the game as well, and there's chaff everywhere, and then you've got a dragon like a Vordry on his, on his monster to go in and smash. I'm super sold by Curious, man. It's a great book.
It's a great book, and that's a great list. I really think Belladama, Radikar, the zombies, the direwolves, it's all new stuff pretty much. We've seen how effective the Vengori Lord was at the weekend in the Super Series coverage. Like, it's a great book at the moment. It's got loads of tools, and I think that's going to lead into the conversation we have later, that you don't need to dominate your opponent, like in some ways. Like, but this does, and key probably is Vordry. Like Final Flash is saying in the chat, Vordry is going to achieve battle tactics, not give up many battle tactics as well, because you've only got the one monster in there, but is so mobile. The list is fairly mobile, but it's also tricksy. It's got so much board control. Really, I think Cody should be super happy with himself, and I think that that's a great list. And I think you should, like, if people get the opportunity, I'm going to write up on the Honest Wargame website later. People get the opportunity to like deep dive it and have some fun with it. I think that could be a fun list that you play with your friends as well, because it doesn't feel. It's not like 9 Storm Fiends where it's just like, cool, I get what you did there. Like, I don't need it. I think there's a lot of play. That's what I'm trying to say. I think Cody's played a lot and he's had a great time.
Definitely. I think just 2 points I'd make. One would be Stephen Mack in the chat saying, so you can redeploy into combat. No, you can't redeploy into combat. Whenever you redeploy, you have to stay outside of 3. But when Rob and I talk about the good 6-inch pile-in, what that means is that you can activate from 6. So normally you would need to, finish a charge within half an inch of a unit, and then your models pile in 3. The zombies and other units in the game, a very select group of units in the game, can be outside of 6 inches or just inside 6 inches. So you haven't completed a charge, you've run or you've redeployed, and then you pile in 6. So you get to dictate the combat as well. That's what that works. And I think, just thinking about it, Rob, all these vampires, they naturally heal, don't they? So if you want to keep your heroes alive, you've got vampire heals for your, drinking blood. Generally on their war scroll, killer model, heal D3, blah, blah, blah. There's spells that do it. And then on top of that, you've got the heroic actions, which allow healing, and they're all bravery 10. So it's going to be very hard to pick off those heroes. So Vordry's going to stay alive. You're going to probably deny Warlord. And then he's got loads of chaff, as you say. And it's not just crap on the board. It's actually
especially with the Necromancer
like
pile and attack twice.
Do stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think there's tech around Skellies as well, because Skellies, when they pile in, they regenerate. So if you give them pile and attack twice, they regenerate twice as they pile in.
Great list.
So yeah. great book and well done.
Yeah.
Well done, Cody.
I'm just going to rattle through now what was in the 4-1 bracket. So Zachary Shin with Breaker Tribe, Greg Hurst with Thunder Lizard, Evan Miller with another Hedonites of Sleshes. That was all Twin Souls. Like, not all Twin Souls, but a lot of Twin Souls in there as well, which is just ego pumps for days. So Evan Miller, you get my, like, big shout out. Absolutely big love to you. Robert Colt with Zinc, Keaton Marshman with LRL, Vito with Seraphon. Vito's a phenomenal player. Chris Summers with DOK, Matthew Gordon with Ineth Deepkin, Aaron Johnson with Deepkin. And got to shout out those two as well, because I don't think Deepkin quite where they were, that dominant position in the meta, specifically because they only have the Ren 2, but you need that Ren 3 or Mortals, and I know they do have Mortals, but again, I don't think Deepkin are what they are, because effectively they can't just chain spam one command ability in turn 3, which is the only way they actually ever played, so they're not what they were. So Matthew and Aaron deserve a bit of love on that, and then Brandon with his Zinch. So that was everything from the US Open. Big shout out to that crew. They should be really happy with that.
Yeah, hell yeah. Lots of good, and I do back up your point about Deepkin. I think the Eels only being 4 wounds really hurts them as well. So they're only ever counting as 1 model. So it's an incredibly small army for capping. So yeah. Do you remember a time when Ren 2 damage on the charge and like D3 more wounds potentially? It was terrifying. Now it's like small fry. It's weird. The game has moved on so much, but. We probably better move on ourselves, right? Otherwise, this is going to be like a 4-hour show, and you've got stuff to do, and I've got stuff to do. So, Flying Monkey Con probably wins the left field tournament name of the week. So, props to the Flying Monkey Con team. So we've got one 5-0 here, which
Owen, I can't wait to tell you. Let me tell you, Jeremy. Okay, I don't know if I've spelled it right. Jeremy Lefebvre. But big shout out to him.
I can help you out there, Rob. It's probably Jeremy Lefebvre. I'd say it's like a French-Canadian
Jeremy
name.
Lefebvre.
Maybe? I don't know. I think it's Lefebvre.
Right.
Lefebvre.
Yeah, I hope we got that right. But let me tell you,
if not,
like we already talked about that. There's been heroes all weekend, Owen. There's already been the phenomenal, the Bill. I mean, everyone really has been doing really well. Our Sunesh is going 4-1s in the different brackets. So already, and now we're like, okay, who went 5-0 at this event? Yeah, and Jeremy has smashed it. And this isn't the end of the story, by the way. Yeah, it's Phoenicium, Cities of Sigmar. Okay, already not expecting that. Hey, Tropic Hammers, thanks for resubscribing, big love. And then he's got Anointed on Frostheart Phoenix, fair enough. And he's got the Arcane Tome to make him a wizard, which I think is nice. So he's got 2 Frostheart Phoenixes. I've just formatted that a bit badly. And one of them has got the Arcane Tome, and it's got Ghost Mist as well. And then he's got the Celestial Hurricanum with Celestial Battle Mage. And then he's got 3 lots of 10 Phoenix Guard. And then he's got 2 lots of 10 Shadow Warriors. And then he's got a Scourge Runner Chariot, and then Owen, he's got 3 assassins.
Okay. I wish the assassins could like jump out of the wings, like out of the wings of the Phoenix, like ta-da! But they do have to pop out of units, right? So each of those units of Phoenix Guard have probably got a little cheeky guy with loads of damage inside, right?
Right. Which is just hilarious as a list until you realise he went 5-0, and you're like, okay. And it's Phoenicium, and you're like, okay. So you're going to be healing 1 on the Phoenixes per turn. You get an extra wound on each one as well. You've it's really funny. Like, it's a great list. It's not well. it's a list. Yeah, that I've never seen do well. Ever. I've never seen a Phoenician army do well one time, let alone go 5-0. I mean, everything in there is good, right? You got -1 to wound from the Frostheart Phoenix. If you get the spell off from the Arcane Tome, then all of a sudden those guys are going to have those additional save. All out attack is really good on them. Heal is really good on them. All out defense is very, very good on them. And then they've got 5-up DPR, and they're probably one of the most effective monsters at that points value of 315. Like, arguably the most efficient monster in there, for points in the game, and it's just an insane list, is what I'm saying, Owen. But it ties into the conversation again. Minimal battle line, not bothered about that, holding the objectives a little bit, and then the monsters doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah, because if anyone doesn't know, the Phoenixes are monsters, so I like it. I can imagine it plays very much like the Phoenixes go in and just try and pin the opponent in for most of the game, debuffing them, being really annoying, healing up every hero phase. Shadow Warriors drop down and cap like mid-board objectives and generally do some shooting and be a bit annoying along with the Chariot. And then if you finally get to the Phoenix Guard on the back objectives and you break out, then a little assassin hops out of every unit and goes, ta-da! Never mind.
Well, what's
mate,
even funnier is if the assassin dies, then because if a unit dies in Phoenicium, then everyone else gets +1 to hit and wound. So then the Phoenix Guard go to 2s and 2s. Right? It's cool, isn't it? It's cool. A cool list. It's so weird, but it's so cool. Thanks, Greybeard's Dead, for resubscribing. And then, look, Jeremy's got to be like, fucking, I don't know if he turns up with a pipe. Yeah, he's like, my name's Jeremy Lefebvre, and I'm here to fuck. Yeah, he turns up with a pipe, he pushes stuff around, he's like, I've got 3 assassins, and then people are like, what the fuck is going on? It's just amazing. Like, and Jeremy, like, a round of applause. I know Simon is going to be over the moon with a cities list going 5-0, but I think, and that's not the end of the fucking gossip from this weekend. Again, amazing list. Shall I just whip through what was in the 4-1 bracket, Owen, for you quickly?
Yeah.
So that list is on the website for you guys if you want to check it out. So in the 4-1 bracket, it was Paul Wright with Deepkin, Sean Sayer with that Legion of the First Prince. Not seeing that so often. I doubt we'll see that become a very meta list. I think we'll see some people play it, but it's a very, very good list. It's a huge control list, very dominant, but well done to Sean on that one. Gene Kale with Blades of Corn, which I think is a great play. Well done, Gene. And then Sean Freed with Daughters of Cain, and Dalton Kale with Zinc. All in that 4-1 bracket of Flying Monkey Con, which sounds like it was a really fun event.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, yeah, shout out. I've just realised who Paul Wright is. That's Paul Is Right, who came to loads of TTS and is like probably one of the biggest stands for Deepkin ever. So sticking with his army that he loves and getting a 4-1 when it could be argued that they took a hit. So yeah, shout out to Paul. Hope you're doing well, mate. So yeah, good stuff. Good stuff indeed. It looks like it was in Kansas, that one.
Psycho in the chat was there.
Although I think Kill Panic might be making a joke, actually. Flying monkeys are in the Oz books. Yeah, okay. This is the last
5-round event, so I'll be super quick about it. But it deserves a massive shout out. 53 players. This is Old Town Throwdown 2. Yeah? And Chris Hernandez and Jeremy, I'm going to get this fucking wrong, Jeremy Vessier, so Chris Hernandez with his Ogre Moor Tribes, and Jeremy Vessier, and this is mind-blowing, with his kharadronoverlords. What? He can't play primaries, he's got no monsters, how's he doing it? Like, phenomenal work, like, really, really good. I'll just quickly blast through the 4-1s, and then we can talk about the lists again. No Aquino with his Stormcast Eternals in 4-1, which is great work. Matthew Jones with his Soulblight Gravelords. Dominic Goz with his Sylvaneth in 4-1. Again, Owen, look at that. They're popping up, you know. They are popping up. The only thing you don't tend to see flying around is Gits and stuff, but Sylvaneth again. Anthony Crute with his Helon LRL. Thomas Gunn with his Daughters of Cain. Chris Doughty with his Taker Tribes. Alexander Gonzalez, I think that's Big Dick Alex, with Soulblight Gravelords. And then Roberto Campos McDonald with his Knights of the Empty Throne list, which was, like, it's very nice. And all of those lists are super worth a look. You can see them all on BCP, by the way, if you want to go check them out. They're all worth a look because everything in the 4-1 bracket was very close to doing very well. However, Chris Hernandez with his Ogre Moor Tribes list deserves a shout out. So let's go talk about that. So he had Frostlord on Stonehorn, a Huskard on Thundertusk, and then he had the Slaughtermaster, and then he had 2 Mournfang, and then he had 2 lots of Stonehorn Beast Riders, and then he had 20 Noblars. So that's his list. Right, which I think was just like, again, we'll talk about the monster conversation in a minute. I don't want to rob you of your time, Chris, but I think there's a great conversation to have here because I think honestly, Ogre Moor Tribes could be right up there for one of the best armies in the game at the minute for points effectiveness. And then Jeremy. Amazing. Jeremy super gives a fuck about Age of Sigmar. He has a podcast. He's a really nice guy. Like, he's just, like, he really, really cares about Age of Sigmar, and he plays loads. So, like, he's just a really good dude. And he's got a kharadronoverlords list that went 5-0. And this is how fucking out there he is, Owen, and how the whole weekend has been so fucky. it's not even a skyport. He's made his own skyport up. Like he's done it himself, which is just amazing. So he's got an Archanaut Admiral, an Etheric Navigator, an Aether Chemist. He's got 3 lots of 10 Archanaut Company. He's got a Gunstruck Gun Hauler, and then he's got an Ironclad and 2 frigates. Now, the interesting thing about the Ironclad, I think the Ironclad is in... No, it's in Battle Regiment. The frigates is, I think the frigates are in the Alpha Beast Pack. Now, I don't know if the event had FAQ'd the Alpha Beast Pack. If it hadn't, then with the Kharadron boats in Alpha Lord Beast Pack, as you know, it counts as a normal move. So they basically get to pre-game move a fly high. I don't know if that's how it was being played, but you could potentially pre-game move a fly high, if that makes sense, Owen.
Yeah, I wouldn't allow that as a TO personally. Or they could fly high D6 inches if they want. That's cool. But yeah, I wouldn't let them fly high all the way over. But I would say that the Navigator is a menace. Whenever I used to play on TTS with Archaon, I would be looking out for the Navigator when I played KO, because he's got that amazing ability of just picking out a flying unit. I believe it's within 36. And on a 3-up, you halve their move. So all these, Archaons and zombie dragons and maybe the Terrorgeist and, these sort of flying beasts that are wanting to get around the board and smash things up. It's a really, for 95 points, it's an amazing little tech piece to drop in there. So, what's this spell in the bottle? Has he got Vortex? Yeah, he's got Vortex as well. So he's got that threat. Maybe they were allowing the Alpha Beast Pack move because it gives him a Zilfin hero phase move drop down thing. We'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, there's huge conversation around the fact that there's so much -1 rend ignore, or you can ignore it with all out defense, and that's what was going to be a problem for KO because most of their shooting is rend 1, and obviously the Triumphs took a bit of a hit. No reroll hits, no reroll wounds. It's just +1 or. So he's obviously found, again, another list which on the face of it you wouldn't expect to do particularly well or brilliantly, but he's played it, right?
He's played it really well. And I think that ties into like our end of conversation. FYI, we're just getting an update from the chat, so thank you to Fame Demise that the Fly High was allowed with the Alpha Beast Pack in there. So that's going to really change the dynamic of how that army plays on the tabletop compared to some other events. But ultimately, if you were to ask me Friday, are we going to see a KO list go 5-0? My answer is no. So big shout out to Jeremy, who, been pointed out, is also on the American Worlds team. So really got really one of those players who's playing the list, like Bill and like some of those other players as well. And that's not to take absolutely anything away from Chris, who also played a blinder. But that now let's just quickly talk about the aggregate, Owen, and talk about kind of a key takeaway that we think that we've got from some of these results.
Yeah, so we had a little look this morning at all the 4-1 brackets, because obviously there's always a conversation about who won, but sometimes the stuff that's bubbling away under the surface that's maybe going to rise up, that's there, and not a huge amount of surprise here, Rob, but our sort of top 4-1 factions through the course of the weekend with all of those games and all of those tournaments. So there were actually 4 armies that had at least 4-1s. So that's Sons of Behemat, Disciples of Zinc, Daughters of Cain, and Seraphon.
See now that makes sense to me. All of that. Sons of Behemat are like definitely in that 4-1 category. I don't know if they're ever, because they asked that question, can you kill me? And some armies can. So they drop that one game. But I would expect to see some Sons of Behemat lists, especially with the new White Dwarf stuff, take out some tournaments in the future. Disciples of Zinc, very, very dominant, especially the Zinc Archaon build, very dominant, and the Summoning. But they play the primary game really well. Daughters of Cain, Marathian, the Bow Snakes, don't need any introduction, but they're very dominant. And then Seraphon. Interestingly, a lot of those Seraphon lists tended to be Thunder Lizard, and I think that's an interesting conversation as well, because, again, that's monster relevant. So Daughters of Cain got a monster, Disciples of Zinc got a monster. If it's Kairos, if it's Archaon, it's still a monster. Sons of Behemat are monsters. Seraphon are bringing those Thunder Lizards in the 4-1. Then Soulblight Gravelords, which you said there's 3 of those in the 4-1s, and Idoneth Deepkin 3 as well. Deepkin, I'm going to throw in the C as a conversation for a moment because it ruins my convo. But the Grave Lords also Vordry, Manfred, Vengori Lord, or Nagash, all key monsters. And then if we throw in like the conversation about Bill's list, if we throw in the one about about Chris's list, just from Old Town Throwdown 2. One of the interesting key bits is they've all got monsters in, and I know, of course, God monsters are great, but I think there's a conversation beyond that, Owen. I don't know, like, do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think the one thing that my brain keeps going to at the moment, and I think they're incredibly strong, is Thunder Lizards. Because monsters that shoot, like if you go into Azir or whatever it's called and type in monster and pick out all those shooting monsters, there's not too many, but Bastiladons will get you. They can sit on an objective and score you something, take monstrous takeover. But anything that can reach out across the board, it's like kill a battle line unit, get an extra point with a monster. It's okay, sweet. Well, I'm going to shoot you with 2 Bastiladons. I'm going to shoot you 27 times at rend 1 damage 2. I've probably got a pretty good chance of getting that tactic. Or, even so, I think they're great. And with elite damage, with monsters flying around and big heroes flying around, they tend to have 6 attacks, 3 damage, or 8 attacks, 2 damage, and that coalesced -1 damage is like super powerful now. It's gone even higher. So if I was just going to start an army from scratch and go out and buy something and want to compete right now, I would probably go Gravelords if I wanted to play something techier. But if I just wanted to win, I'd be going out and buying dinosaurs.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think I think what we're effectively trying to say is like with those battle tactics where you achieve those additional 3 bonus points, that's swinging these games, because I think the aggregate at the minute, or the average basically, is depending on the battle plans that you play, of course, but I would comfortably say that it's about 20. So when you're looking at like a significant percentage of like the average score just being a bonus point to you, and then if you can kill a monster with a monster, then you're in such a solid spot, because there's an additional point swing on there as well. If you're playing something like with Predators, so it's an additional point swing on top, I think that's really important too. But ultimately, you're gaining, especially if everyone in the world isn't using the win differential or points differential. If you're just doing pure win-loss draw, which I think is the right play, I think that's the right decision for us for tournaments. But like when you're just doing win-loss draw, that additional couple of VP every turn is massive, because your opponent drops 1 battle tactic, and then you just achieve a couple extra bonus points with having monsters in your list. That's a 4 to 5 point swing. I'm going to say most of the time you win in that setup. Like, as long as you're competing on the primaries and you're not just playing terribly. Like, in which case, I think actually that's your win point. And I think we're going to see more monsters. I think everything is super viable at the moment. Not everything's super viable, but I think like Beastcore Raiders are going to do super well. Like, I think Marathi and the Bow Snakes is great, and I think the Wind Spirits are great, and I think Zinc Archeon is great. But I think actually there's a lot more lists out there that are more viable in this edition than there was in the last edition, because you're scoring points in a predominantly different way. Like, so I just think it's a fascinating convo, and I think the results reflect that at the weekend. Surprises. The one that really stands out to me more than anything is Jeremy's KO list. That's the one that doesn't tie into that conversation. It's got no monsters. It doesn't do any of that. It just shoots a ton. Like, it's also not like playing super hard on the primary. It's got like 310 Arcanauts. It's like, here I am. You're like, okay, like what? You're not holding primaries. Like, you're not getting bonus points. Like, it's crazy. It's a great weekend for like having a think about Age of Sigmar, in my opinion.
Definitely, and I think I'm not going to talk too much about my games yesterday, but I did play 2 really interesting games which go to this conversation. Which was game 1, I played against the list which had a large amount of non-hero monsters, which I think is not the way to go. So Gorgons, Hydras, Gothizar Harvesters. Name your non-hero monster that can't heal. All you're going to do is give up VPs. So I don't think that that's the way to go. It has to be the hero monster. Or you go the other way, like Aaron's list, which I played in game 3 yesterday. Not a monster on the board, and all about and he also played it in such a way that he had 4 warp lightning cannons and 4 doom wheels, so he wasn't giving anything away when he just pushed that towards my army, and he kept all his battle line and his little heroes at the back. So I think you go all in on the hero monsters. Actually, yeah, good shout there, actually, Glader. Leviathan probably is the only counter to that as a non-hero monster, because he's got the good shooting attack and the impact hits and doesn't go down easily. I'm not right. I'm just talking out loud after playing a lot of games over the weekend. But to monster or not to monster, I think you do monster, but you have to choose your monster carefully, right? You can't just throw a load of non-hero monsters on the board because you give up too many VPs. And generally, you might be like running around with Ferocious Advance for an extra point. But then when you do that, you're then giving up 3 VPs. And if your opponent plays well and kills the monsters methodically one by one through the turns, you're giving up those points. So that's my thoughts.
And they're solid ones as well. And just loads to take away from this weekend. Obviously, all these lists can be looked at time and again, but list composition is also a big change as well. Fascinated to see how this all works in team format. Obviously, just to shout out, that's all the 5-0s over the weekends. Congratulations to everyone who played in all of them. And then we obviously, just a quick one for my event that I ran over, before we get into the one-dayers, we ran the Super Series Showcase. So it was the Dragon Slayers versus the South London Legion. Owen was in the South London Legion. Dragon Slayers came over. It was a pretty great, you can go watch it all back on the T Sports Network, all the live events. And there were some interesting takeaways from that. The highest scoring player was Andy Hughes, for VPs, and he was running that Soulblight Gravelords list with Nagash, the Venga Boy, so the Vengori Lord, and of course Manfred as well. And then he had the minimal zombie battle line, and that scored the highest VPs over the weekend. And I think it was just because everything he was doing with a monster, and his monsters were rarely dying. So it was just a really interesting kind of like. And then the second highest scoring player was like Hawkeye in the chat. Thanks for subscribing. We'll talk about him in a minute. Winning an event this weekend was Simon Froley with his Sons of Behemoth list, and he was scored really high as well. So some really good takeaways. The other takeaway is, sorry Owen to say it, is the Dragon Slayers whomped the South London Legion. So congratulations to them.
More on that later. Yeah, I've got. I'll cover that in my shout outs. But yes, congratulations. And I think our takeaway is that the Legion as a team, we went for anti-meta. We thought that we could maybe win with control and denial, and we realised that monster meta was the way to go. And the Dragon Slayers turned up with some really strong lists. Frostlord on Stonehorn with double metal. I mean, people can go back and look at the lists on a previous show, but the Slayers did indeed slay us. And we went back to London, but we had a wicked time. Everyone loved the venue, Rob. Big stonks. Everyone is going to be back soon, I'm sure. So, and a great learning experience, right? 6-man teams. That's 12. That's how many games of Warhammer is that? Is that 18 games of Warhammer?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, 18 rounds, 18 games of Warhammer.
So 8. And that was lots of learning there. So, if anybody wants to go back and watch those, or even join Patreon and hear me being really salty sometimes, that's definitely worth entrance fee alone.
Yes, that was a great weekend. You can go watch it back on the T Sports Network. That's where that was. Still loads I'm going to talk about through the week on that. I think a lot of the conversations I'm having look at the event results from the weekend is off the back of that. And I'll talk about the format in the future, buddy, I promise. And we'll talk about that more. Owen, one-day events, talk to me. What's been happening in the world?
Wow, okay, so we've got, I hope I get this right. I think it sounds like an Italian name. Torneo Veraneggio, maybe. Looks like 12 players playing Age of Sigmar, and it looks like Magickin of Nurgle came out on top
Magnificent
there.
Wanderers,
so
this, right?
Again, yeah, which is the way to go. People have been sleeping on Nurgle for ages, and now, whilst Rob didn't get the result that he wanted at the weekend, perhaps you can see people watch the games back. Like those lists, very resilient, great unclean one. You can build him for speed or build him for combat. Plague Bearers, Sloppity Bile Piper, and then this one's got the 4 Pusgoyle Blightlords in there. Rob, which I really like those Blight Lords. They're mortals and they're demons, so they can pick up buffs from both sides of the book, which is cute. Although a lot of it is just Nurgle. And yeah, they've got good monsters, very survivable. They're faster than people expect them to be. So yeah, Maggot Kind of Nurgle came out on top there. And then there was a tournament called the Atomic Age of Sigmar. We had Stomper tribes, so megagargants again, and Ogre tribes. God, it's almost like there's a narrative being developed here, right, Rob? When you look into
there's there's
definitely a narrative. Yeah, man. There's one army that hasn't been mentioned yet, but we'll talk about that in a minute, I'm sure, briefly. And then I got contacted by Duncan, who runs a great TO, running loads of events in Bristol. He had an intro to 3rd edition series, which sounds like a really good thing. He was doing both 2K and 1K brackets. So really looking to build the community there in the West Country of the UK. So we've got Matthew F. That might be Matthew Feltham, perhaps. Taking out he was in the 2K bracket, and he won with his Stormcast. Maybe some Annihilators in there.
MSU Annihilators. Maybe.
Maybe those Maybe the Dominion box was coming in big. And then we have a Zinc list from Joe, and then a Seraphon list from David. I know these are very scant details, but I think we've heard Zinc, Seraphon, Ogres, Suns. They've come up a lot, right? Worldwide. So, those lists are hella strong. No Annihilators, the Shootcast. Duncan's in the chat. Hey, man, thanks for sending that over. A Shootcast list, Rob. So
interesting.
Haven't really heard much of those since the battalion went away. The old triple battalion conclave list. So, and then we can't not talk about Simon Hall, who plays in lots of tournaments, runs lots of tournaments. Generally a bit of a celebrity over there in Australia, in Queensland. He went to a Games Workshop Championship store, and he keeps telling me that it wasn't filth. Like, I just take a fluffy list and da-da-da. But he unsurprisingly took a Cities of Sigmar list and won the tournament there. So props to Simon. Off the top of my head, it included lots of the things that you'd expect and maybe a couple of things you wouldn't. So Frostheart Phoenix. I think there was a Hurricane in there. Undrasta, who is brilliant in cities. And then a nice blob of 30 Sisters of the Watch. And he had 3 Annihilators. So, board edge popping on, not dropping down and doing a load of mortals, but certainly popping up on the side of a board edge with a load of big hammers going, I'm coming at you, like Cleopatra. Deep cut there.
I'm so excited to see the actual Stormcast book at some point. So we start getting this like half broken together Stormcast thing with everything else, and then we see how they're going to integrate with cities properly. But I think Simon's going to be really happy that they've taken out a 1-day event as well as taking out a 5-day event. 5-round event somewhere else in the world, right? Cities stonks going up.
Yeah, exactly. And also, isn't it great that model ranges that are 10 plus years old still viable in the brand new game? Like, fair play, GW. It is great that people were really worried about the Great Cull, when just stuff all disappeared. But if you love the faction and you're creative with your list writing, much like let me get his name right, much like Jeremy at Flying Monkey Con, 2 completely different lists using very, some similar component parts, and and also meaning that people get to bring out their old toys and have a wicked time, right?
Yeah. But it isn't on purpose, like Nick says, pure fluke, but pure fluke that we can all benefit from, which I think is really nice. Is that all? Is Owen? Is that all of the 1-day events? And so that was Cities of Sigmar, and that was the championship in Queensland,
Australia, a place called Mount Gravette.
Varangard are not monsters, just to answer a question in the chat. Big shout out to Ziggy. Can you hear me? Thanks to Ziggy, by the way, for doing all the stats overlay stuff for the weekend, because he's a superstar. What else happened at the weekend, Owen? We had Hammerstorm event here at the TSN Arena after the Super Series match on the Saturday, a 1-day event between 16 players. You had some legends there. Math Mallow, arguably one of the best Sylvaneth players in the world, was in attendance. Dan, Arnold, a treasure, was here with his Deepkin pushing them all around. We had some great new players. We had Nick Thompson. We had some great human beings here play, but it was won by the Owen Jackson in the 3-0 bracket. Yes, that's right, Owen the champ. So if we can get some applause for Owen in the chat, please. There we go. Owen, how did you feel?
Nice.
OCR Bone Reapers nice. As well. Hey, Skill Slide.
Of course. Yeah, I've never won an event ever. I've got loads of pieces of paper that say second place or third place. Actually, I got a really nice. So that's third last weekend and first this weekend. Benjamin texted me going, that's now you know how it feels. And I was like, I think I need to probably win a big event to really know. So, but no, it's very nice. And I took Cat across and in a control list, but then I took my list. Let's call it my faction reaction list, shall we, Rob? Because I did say, didn't I, that you can do it if you pull the levers and you don't roll too many double ones. You can win with OBR, and that was one of the things. Like, I haven't heard the term Ossiarch Bone Reapers come up once in all of that chat all over the world. So, you know,
we haven't. No, Ossiarchs didn't feature in 4-1. They didn't feature in the 3-0s. That's the only, I think, Ossiarchs like show there, and I think that's probably because, probably because they're not very good. And so Black Gravelords are better, right? That's the real answer.
I mean, the truth hurts. Somebody in one of the chats, it was actually Fabian in one of the chats, was like, Owen, somebody saying like, Ossiarch Bone Reapers are shit, and like, I'm just going, hold my beer. I'm going to show you how to do it. It was it. Okay, so Nagash, Mir Kanan, 2 blocks of 20, Mortek, 5 Death Riders, and they're all in Hunters. And Spell Portal and Burning Head. So all the little cheeky things I was doing I talked about in the faction reaction I was doing. The only list change I've made recently is to put all of my battle line in Hunters, because if you can't reroll your saves, it does melt. But I know we've been a bit sweary on this show, so I'm not sure it's a problem. But Nagash is a big dickhead, and it's really horrible to play against if it goes right. So the trick around using Burning Head to damage to proc teleporting Nagash anywhere on the board, and then he still moves. I played Beasts of Chaos, which was a really good draw for most armies. Beasts of Chaos round 1, and then Gotrek and Eels. And then we have to shout out Aaron, who is first AOS tournament. Amazing play. He called dice quicker than Tom Layton, which I know doesn't seem humanly possible, but he was on point. And he had 4 Doom Wheels and 4 cannons, and it was very scary. But Nagash delivered. And again, talking about monsters, juicing up loads of arcane bolts. Everyone's really scared about the D3 mortals when they charge in, but it's more about the 12-inch pick stuff out. So you can pick off characters, pick off the last remnants of a battle line unit to get your extra broken ranks. I tabled everybody except for Gotrek was alive against Dan, and a Warp Lightning Cannon was alive against Aaron. It was great to win, and to show that there is life in the old dog yet.
Didn't you buy a Soul Black Gravelords book?
So that's it, though. Yeah, behind me, but anyway, shut up.
Sure, yeah, I'm listening to you. Sure, I remember you watching your fucking entire face smashed in by some metal crunchers. There was also another event, and congratulations to Owen. Also, another shout out, because you were in the 3-0 bracket along with, but you got a higher differential than JJ. JJ also went 3-0. Big shout out to JJ. In second place, went 3-0. He had Gotrek, he had Gotrek, he had 40 Iron Drakes, I think, in his list, and Illuminat, but it was all kit bashed, and he also had a Frostheart Phoenix, Anointed of Asurion on Frostheart Phoenix, which I thought was a cute little play, and he had some great games against Jack and everyone else, and he also managed to take out a pretty competent opponent in Math Mallow as well, who was pushing those Stone Guard around. I think he played Math Mallow, which is pretty good. So big shout out to him. That was great. There was also War in the Mortal Realm. Oh no, I've just lost the bloody list. A War in the Mortal Realms at the weekend, which is another little cheeky one there with 32 people. Owen, there was 3 people 3-0. So you had Gabe Huddleston, who is amazing. Hawkeye from the Marauders. You can go check them out on their YouTube channel. You can find him on Twitter, but you can also go check him out on their YouTube channel, the Marauders. Gabe's a lovely human being. So he smashed it with, again, Sons of Behemoth. Don't want to keep having this conversation, but it's there. And then you had Dan Bradshaw with Lumineth, which I know was all the Foxes, very much like Joe's list. So Joe's list TM, Dan was copying Joe's list. And then Troy Harding with Zinc as well at that 3-0 event, so which is cool. So yeah, like it's a
I think that was
a
the one at Sanctuary, right? Yeah. So I know that Blagan went to that, and also that's Darren Parks, and also Tom Waller went for Metal Crunchers.
Tom Waller.
So maybe he didn't quite crunch through everything. Like
I'm a huge Tom Waller stan,
but
because Tom Waller got bust at all of the Super Series matches for the Dragon Slayers, and then this weekend he just turned up. He's like, "Wait, a monster's good in this edition now," and just kept punching Metal Crunchers. You specifically, Owen, but everyone, right? It was just great. It was really good.
Yeah, but he's a great gamer, and he's really put in the work. I played him at one of my very first events in 2019. And I think both of us have leveled up our games since then. And props to him. I did say it was the redemption of Waller at the weekend at the Super Series. So good for him. Putting in loads of games, loads of work, and it pays off, right? There's no substitute for practice. So if people want to get better, don't just go out and buy a net list. Play your good stuff, but just play your mates all the time. Like this week, I got 7 games this week, Rob. 7 games.
Yeah.
It's the way you do it, right?
Just keep playing, or just keep talking about it. That's my tactic. While everyone else is playing around him. But learning loads is the point. I want to shout out Joe Cryer in the chat, who is one of our 5-0s from the weekend, with the Joe Cryer list. So, Joe Cryer list, as you heard on the faction reaction, is, of course, Joe Cryer is... So, while Matt Goldsborough was all about the Helon and the Kangaroos and Severith. Severith is all Matt Goldsborough. Yeah, the 4 or 5 win spirits with Severith is definitely Joe Cryer. So if ever you think 4 or 5 win spirits, Joe Cryer, just think that every time. Severith, like any of that, just really picture Joe Cryer. I think maybe it's his fault. Like just think, just attach that to him emotionally. Get it on him is what I'm going to say.
Sorry, I'm just laughing at Ham's fan. So buy a net list and then practice that?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Well, yeah, okay.
Yes, do that, Ham's fan. 100% do that. 100%. And you can find those net lists, if you want, on the internet, on thehonestwargamer.com. Owen, great weekend of Warhammer, right? Loads to unpack still, even though we've talked about it for an hour and a half.
Yeah, man. I mean, we could carry on all day, but we've got to probably do other stuff as well, right? But yeah, it's wild at the moment. I think my overall takeout is just that the players who know how the game works and the ones that are playing lots of games, I think they're the ones that are rising to the top. And perhaps, as long as they've got the right component parts, I think it's not like put this on the table and win anymore. You need to know how the game operates. So there is an opportunity for interesting lists to get 5-0s and win tournaments because they're just playing the game. They're playing 3.0. And it is a wildly different game to 2.0.
Completely different. Completely different, yeah. Like those standouts from the weekend, just insane. Like, especially the KO, especially that FEC win is just crazy stuff. It's a phenomenal game. The game is wide open. Like, yeah, there are some very abusive top-end builds. Don't get me wrong. But the game's also wide open because it's about scoring points. It's always been about scoring points. But this way, the way you score points is so different. The way you deny points is different as well. Fascinating weekend. You could talk about it forever. But we can't. Thanks, Owen, for an amazing weekend. And thanks for a great show today. I hope you have a lovely day for the rest of the day.
Thanks, man. I mean, should we just have a little look to the future? Because there's so much going on. We actually only need to talk about next weekend.
Let's do it.
So events. So if anyone wants to come and have a listen to us rambling on about Warhammer again on Monday, we're going to be talking about NashCon in Nashville, USA. There's the King in the North in Tromsø in Norway. You've got Richie and Ian and the Just Play guys are putting on the Justice Series GT
Is that this weekend?
in Liverpool, right here in the UK. There's the Polish. Yeah, I believe it's either the GT. It's they've got a Justice Series event, and I'm going. I hope it's this weekend because I think it's this weekend.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
Right,
It is. It's this weekend. I've got a tired brain, but it is this. I've got 4 tournaments in 5 weekends, so I know I'll be playing Warhammer somewhere, and I'm pretty sure it's in Liverpool. Polish team championships in Katowice in Poland, and then Siege World in Illinois, again in the US. So buckle up for another 2-hour show next Monday, I suppose.
Is the really excited about that. Yeah. Loving it. And my takeaway for the weekend is that, and from doing the coverage, is that battle tactics make the coverage far more fun as well. Like, just a great time. And I hope you guys are all enjoying Age of Sigmar, because I know that there's a lot of chatter on the internet about all sorts of stuff, but I think it's in a great place. I think the game is wildly unbalanced, yeah. But that's what it's a mosh pit. You don't sit on the edge of the mosh pit and think that looks pretty fucking dumb. You think, do you know what? One time in my life, I'm gonna go inside that maelstrom.
I'm gonna take my
top off. I'm gonna jump in there, and welcome to Age of Sigmar, because that's how it works. You got some shout outs though before we head out?
Yes, I have indeed. I'm in a very privileged position to say thanks to people who I either played. So I'll just rattle off quickly. I'd like to thank South London Legion, my teammates, Nico, Leo, Simon, Rob, and Obaid. Whilst we didn't get the result we wanted, we talked about Warhammer all week, along with people like Seb, who was chipping in as well, and Matt. So basically, South London Legion will be back stronger. We learned so much this weekend. So I just wanted to say thanks to those guys, because I had a great time being part of the team. I want to shout out the thumbs down crew. So there are 2 to 5 people that always put thumbs down on these videos. You live your best lives. I'd like to say thanks to all my opponents from the weekend. I'd like to thank Nick Thompson, stellar human being. And finally, I'd like to thank the Dragon Slayers. It does turn out that they can slay more than just dragons. So you slayed us, you beat us hands down, and we had a great time whilst you did it. So much love to you guys.
Good.
And that's it.
Great set. My shout out is to Andy Hughes. Might be one of the best Age of Sigmar players in the world. But might be arguably one of the best. Unbelievable at Warhammer. So huge shout out to him. Huge shout out to the Twitch chat. I fucking love you. I don't know if you can see, but we're trying to raise some money for some more coverage cameras at the bottom. It's right there. If you want to donate any money, if anything we do makes you smile, chuckle, grimace, the guys that thumb down, you guys, just fucking put some money in that pot. That would help us all out loads. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. I'll be live again tonight with Nathan, Dan, and James. We'll be talking about megagargants and Kraken sandals and some White Dwarf articles. Any of that stuff would be super cool, and it'd be it'd be so good to see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys soon. Have a nice day. Awkward ending. Have a nice day or gay. Whatever you want. It's your day. Both. Your choice. Take your top off. Swing in the pits.
Go for both.
Yeah.